Yes, today I thought I'd talk about another of the Buddha's teachings, this time from the Majjhima Nikaya, which is one of the oldest collections of his teachings. And this concerns right effort. But there are a number of angles to this, and I wanted to focus on a particular angle as to how we go about following the path and, quite frankly, changing ourselves and what is involved in that. Because of the popularity of mindfulness courses now, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it might give the impression that it is enough to go on a course for a few weeks, learn mindfulness of breathing usually, and one or two other tricks, and somehow something fairly dramatic will happen. I think this sort of functional approach has its merits, and this is the world we live in. We want quick fixes for everything. If one has a specific problem, maybe depression or tinnitus or pain, some of these approaches are quite useful as quick fixes. That's what they are. But if one is looking for something which is more life transforming, which is looking for direction in life, a meaning of it all, then it seems very unlikely that you would get it from a 10-week or 8-week course. Although that might start you on the way, in that you might then start asking questions you wouldn't otherwise have asked. So I want to come to this question of effort and what we're making an effort for or to. The Buddha's teaching on right effort is not about the ordinary efforts of life, like making some money, having a roof over your head. It is about those things for lay people in particular, of course, but that's not really what he's talking about. When he talks of effort, he's talking about mental effort. So he's talking about the effort of learning how your own mind works, how it can lead you in directions which are harmful to yourself and to others, and take you away from the reality of things. So it's self-searching effort, learning how to understand oneself. This is a very important point, because of course we know that if we don't understand how our mind works, then we are likely to be led into making a lot of effort in worldly things, such as the things connected with ego and pride, such as having more power over people, wanting to be promoted to a higher position at work and so on, or having a bigger car because the neighbour's got a bigger car than I have, living in a smarter area of town. All these things are perfectly understandable, and for lay people the Buddha is not saying give that all up, but just put it in perspective. That surely cannot be where you find the meaning of life. So we need to, at least as lay people, be moderate in our choices and think about what we are putting the effort of life into. So you have to look at it holistically. That is, if I were to look at my life from the time I became fully conscious and able to contemplate on direction in my life, up until the time that I pass away from this life, which let's say could be 50, 60 years or so, not a very long period of time really, what is it actually worthwhile putting effort into? But you have to look at it holistically, because what happens, of course, to all of us, including myself, is that we tend to put a lot of effort into a very narrow conception of, like, where I am at the moment. I would like to be promoted, or I'd like to earn more, or I'd like to move to a better post. And before you know what, 5 or 10 years have gone by struggling for that. And then we start on another rigmarole in another place, and another 5-10 years goes by, and before you know what, you're getting retired, you're getting old, your body's starting to break down, your energy is depleting, and then you think, what was that all about? What was that all about? Now, it's better, the earlier you can ask that question, what is this all about, the better generally. But you see, the snag is, of course, that reorientating oneself requires effort, or it requires a shift in the direction of effort. Because it could always be, you could always ask yourself, what am I putting effort into in my life as a whole, and is it all worthwhile? Or could I at least modify or adapt it in some way, or change direction in some way that will bring me greater understanding and self-understanding, bring me greater compassion for others, get on better with people, have some meaning in life. So you get to old age and sort of think, well, I did my best really, and I think on the whole, I was going in the right direction. Many of us never think of that actually. Vast mass of people just go into London. I was talking recently with somebody who goes into London to work every day, which I used to do. I used to go to Hammersmith, worked at the hospital there for some time, working in ethics. And after a few years of that, I thought, God, this is exhausting. This is exhausting. And it was just like a lot of people rushing about on a lot of contraptions for no particular clear goal other than I have to do it, really. Well, everybody else seems to do it, so I suppose I should be doing it as well. Very bad for one's health, very bad for one's orientation in life, tends to make one more cynical and competitive. I'm very glad to be out of that and not having to go into London. It was very exciting at first, working in London. I mean, what could be better? After a while, it became a curse, actually. So I'm very happy to be out of London and out of any big city right now. It's a daunting thought that just about half the world's population now lives in cities. Not by cities, I don't mean towns, I mean cities, like Mexico City or Tokyo. Huge conglomerations. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. But effort. The Buddha is telling us that there are two aspects, I think, to making effort to be a kinder, wiser person. First of all, you have to deal with the stuff that's getting in the way. And secondly, you have to cultivate the things which are good, which are fruitful, which are beneficial, which lead you into greater wisdom and peace. Now, I'll just read what is here. Some of it is rather archaic or academic kind of English. The Buddha said, "And what, friends, is right effort? He or she awakens enthusiasm for the arising of unarisen wholesome states." What that means is that you have to become aware that you have the capacity, small as it may be at first, to actually arise within you, bring forth within you positive feelings and conceptions of others, such as being more generous, being more grateful, but they may be unarisen. So we have to be aware that the potential is there. But I think nearly all of us think something like, basically, I'm quite a good person, really. Yeah, I'm a nice guy, It's just life gets in the way, or other people. But as for me, I'm okay. It's just the world out there and it's other people. Which, when you think that all 7 billion people are saying something like that, you think there's something wrong with the arithmetic here. The fact is, I think there is some truth in this, insofar as I sometimes have the thought that I may be kinder than society allows me to be. It's quite a common thought, that. You see what I mean? I may be kinder than society allows me to be. So this creates a kind of fear of being kind, for example, or being generous. That if you do so, you'll be taken advantage of. Therefore, I won't do that. Being smart is actually being a little bit cynical about others and their motives. Now, when you add that up, and you've got a whole society like that, it's not a very happy society, is it? It's a society of suspicion, which, just look around you now, where we are in the year 2019. Society of suspicion, that's what we have. Okay, so we need to look into ourselves and say, what is it that's stopping me? Is it fear? Is it keeping up with others that have more than myself? What is it that stops me being more generous, more grateful, perhaps? Gratitude seems to be quite a rare commodity these days. Most people are feeling I'm not getting as much as I should do. They don't go around saying, gosh, what a wonderful thing it is, I'm receiving so much in terms of sunshine, clean water, and so on. Just take them for granted. So all of us feel like we're hard done by, which is strange when you think that where we are right now in the south of England is one of the richest parts of the world, the most comfortable parts of the world. And yet we're pretty grumpy on the whole. Odd, isn't it? I mean, just go and live in some parts of Asia or Africa or South America for a few weeks, and you'll see how grateful we really ought to be. Where there's no real security, just walking down the street, let alone getting clean water. Okay, so what is it in me? I mean, do I have greater potential than I'm actually manifesting? I suppose is what the question is asking. Could I be kinder? Could I be wiser? Could I be more grateful? Could I be more generous? And what is it that always pops up and says, yes, you really want to, but you can't? Right? Because it's you that's doing that. It's nobody else is doing it. And if we all do that, if we all take that line, then obviously things are not going to get any better for any of us. So, awaken enthusiasm for the arising of unarisen, or say potential, wholesome states, and makes effort, and arouses energy, exerts his mind, and strives. So he awakens zeal for the continuance, non-disappearance, or strengthening and increase of arisen wholesome states. That's a long-winded way of saying to awaken in yourself that potential for greater generosity, gratitude, etc. Now, just a warning, he's not trying to make any of us perfect, I don't think. Well, maybe he's trying to make certain monks perfect, or maybe he's perfect, I don't know. But as lay people, we're just looking for improvements, basically. We're not looking for perfection, because that just sets us all up for failure, doesn't it? We all think, well, I can't do that, this is too idealistic, and then we turn our back on it. We're talking about what is better, not what is best. I don't know whether there's any such thing as perfection when it comes to, ethical or spiritual matters. Some people do think it's possible, but I think we should keep our eye on the road and not on what's on the end of it. Because if you keep thinking, yeah, but I should really be perfect, it sets you up for failure. But what it does is create another craving. Like I'm craving to be a perfect person or something, which is downright silly, quite frankly. We should just keep walking on the road. And when you look back, you will see, oh yeah, I have come quite a way actually. But if you try to hold in front of you some ideal of perfection, it's probably more damaging than helpful. That's what I think, anyway. Okay, now the second part here is quite interesting. He uses a metaphor. Suppose a cloth were defiled, that is, dirty, and stained, and a dyer dipped it in some dye or other, say blue or yellow, red or pink, it would finally look poorly dyed and impure in colour. Right, so this cloth has already got some stains in it. So we take this piece of cloth and we think, I'll brighten it up, dye it in, say, canary yellow, okay? The Buddha's going to say, yes, well, the trouble is that the stains will still be there, won't they? You'll just have a veneer of yellow dye over them. So why is that? Because of the impurity of the cloth. The cloth itself, at the beginning of the process, wasn't clean, right? So that suggests, like 2 stages. Or at least we have to work on 2 things at the same time. We have to notice the negative states that arise within us, such as doubt, fear, jealousy, whatever, right? We have to notice them, and we have to. Those are what he calls the stains in the cloth, right? We have to find a way of moderating them, or not suppressing them, but we may be working with them, around them, or whatever, in order to make space for the good things. Because it's common sense, isn't it, that if you're carrying, say, a lot of suspicion about other people and their motives, how is that going to work alongside generosity and gratitude? Can you be suspicious of others and generous? They're kind of working against each other, aren't they? Would you agree? Chat about this in a minute. Okay, so why does it look poorly dyed and impure in colour? Because of the impurity of the cloth. So too, when the mind is defiled, stained if you like, by meanness or jealousy, an unhappy outcome may be expected. But if the cloth were pure and bright in the first place, and the dyer dipped it in some new dye, red, yellow, whatever, it would look well dyed and pure in colour. Why is that? Because of the initial purity of the cloth. So when too the mind is undefiled, a happy outcome may be expected. Now there's a lot of words there, but I take it to be saying something which just a little self-analysis will show you actually, and that is that certain negative states of mind, you could take them for granted and say, well, that's how I feel, so what? On the other hand, you might say, that is how I feel now, is that good for me or harmful? The fact is, he's saying, is that is blocking the way to your self-enhancement, if you like, from an ethical point of view. So we need to be doing, the effort needs to be inward. It needs to have, to recognize the difference between, if you like, my potential and what actually arises. And I need to see the difference between wholesome states of mind and harmful states of mind. So take this thing about potential. I think we all recognize that each of us has a potential for something. There are certain triggers that set us off. So, for example, I will become angry. And there are probably certain triggers that set me off. Maybe something to do with childhood experiences or whatever, that certain things will make me very angry. Right, I'm not talking about anger on behalf of other people, which I call indignation, but just anger, usually, which is associated with one's ego. But I think we all know that some of us have a potential for anger, even when we don't express it. Do you know what I mean? Someone has carrying anger. They're not necessarily expressing it a lot of the time, but that trigger comes along and bam. Right? It's the same with all the other states of mind. Some of them are just under the surface, but this applies to the good ones as well. There are some good things that we carry around under the surface and too afraid to manifest. Perhaps I am more generous than I allow myself to be. What's blocking it? Fear? Are being taken advantage of, perhaps? What if I say to myself, if somebody takes advantage of me, that's their problem. I'm looking after my state of mind. If I'm generous to you and you take advantage of that, then you have some work to do. I shouldn't be so concerned about your state of mind. I should be concerned about my own, first of all. Do you see what I'm saying? So this, for the Buddha, is what effort is about. Now, this is not something you hear once and remember to do once or twice, because actually it's a training, isn't it? You're like retraining your mind, retraining your heart, if you like, retraining yourself. So it goes on as much as you can every day, with the little things. As banal as washing the dishes. I really don't want to. But then my wife comes along and says, oh, you haven't washed the dishes. And I'm thinking, well, why did you wash the dishes then? Right, so, yeah, it's a bit sad, isn't it? Why not just wash the dishes with some mindfulness and do it thoroughly? Everyone's happy then. Okay? So you see, it can be very banal. If we can't cope with the little things, how are we going to cope with the much greater things that turn up in life, involving trauma and loss? Then we just fall apart, because we've never trained ourselves. Right, well, I'll stop there, and maybe you've got some questions or answers or experiences you'd like to share.